On the first episode of the My Story podcast, we're speaking to Spanish racing driver Marta Garcia. Previously in 2019, she raced in the W Series Championship and won one of the races at Norris Ring. But we start our chat by speaking about her early career and the decisions that led to her getting into a go-kart for the first time. Hopefully you enjoy the show, and thank you to Marta for her time. So, Marta, you're one of the few Spanish racing drivers who are currently showcasing their talents to big crowds around the world. Where did your journey start? Was it looking up to people like Fernando Alonso?
Well, actually, when I was really small, I always had in mind Fernando Alonso. He was one of my reference, let's say. He was Spanish, so yeah. And I always loved the racing and the speed, so yeah. Also watching Formula 1 made me want to maybe someday be there or something like this.
So when you asked your parents to go karting for the first time, were they supportive, or did they want you to try something a bit safer?
Oh, well, actually, it was my dad that wanted us to go to a karting track. My mom was okay, all right. It was just okay, let's just go have fun to the racetrack and try. But yeah, it obviously came more than trying. When I tried it the first time, I liked it a lot. And then I told my dad that I wanted to do this and blah, blah, blah. And in the end, he bought me a car and I started training.
And do you remember those first times in the car? Was there something that instantly made you love it?
Yeah, actually, yeah. Since the first time that I got in the car, I really liked it. And I was okay, I think I want to do this, because I tried a lot of different sports, but they were more for me, they were a bit more boring. And this one was more yes, this one, yeah.
So around 2011, you started taking part in races. Was this a good quality of drivers to be racing against?
Yeah, actually, I think for starting, I started in regional championships, and then I did the Spanish championship. I think it was quite good to start in the Spanish championship because obviously there was level, but there was not that much level as in the international racing series. So I think it was a good start for me in the beginning, and yeah, it's a nice championship.
And you ended up finishing just behind the title in 2013 by 4 points. I imagine quite young at the time. Was that quite a tough moment just to realise it wasn't quite enough?
I did second in two of the Spanish, actually in 2013 and 2014, yeah. And yeah, obviously I wanted to win, but it was not so easy. Also because there was so many guys, boys drivers, that they didn't want me to win, and they did some weird stuff. I can't remember. So yeah, in the end I was second both years, but I mean it was quite okay.
And something that amazes me about go-karting is how physical it is. Is that an aspect that you had to sort of train early on, or did you just go for it?
I started training physically when I was about 12 years old.
Okay.
I started quite early. But also because I wanted to be fit, and also my dad was okay, train. And yeah, I started training at that age. But then it got more difficult when I started doing actually single seaters, because in karting it was quite good for me, but also because I was training.
In 2015, you went on to win two sort of big races and championship. I think it's the Trofeo Industrio KFJ class and also the CIK FIA Karting Academy Championships. I assume, looking at what you've said in the past, these are two big standout moments in your career.
Those two wins, the Academy Trophy and also the Trofeo de la Industria, were one of my best races in all my career, let's say, because they were the boom, I say like this, because I did so many good results, but I never came first. So in the Trofeo de la Industria, I remember I was like 15 years old. It was a really fighting race. Like you didn't know who was gonna win until the last 2 laps. And yeah, I remember I won it. It felt so great. And also the Academy Trophy. There were like many drivers. I think it was like 60 drivers from a lot of countries, like all over the world. And yeah, it felt also so good to be like the first and be the woman who wins the championship.
I mean, I was looking at the results. It was incredible to see how many drivers you beat. And in 2015, you did even more karting. You finished 4th place in the European FK Championship. You actually beat last year's British Formula 3 Championship, just to put that into perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the European Championship was quite, like, there was a good level when I was racing. And being 4th in the championship for me was really good because, being 4th out of, I don't know if it was like 80 drivers, it was like really good. And yeah, it was fine.
And was that the point when you wanted to make the step to car racing? Because you realised at this point you're putting in great results all the time.
Well, I think so, yeah. Also because I've got a bit of the opportunity to race. I remember I've got the chance to do the 4 last rounds of the Spanish F4 on that year. I think it was 2016. And yeah, I did them. It was more like getting the feeling of the car because it was new for me. I didn't even do many days of testing. I was just going straight to the races. But yeah, that's when I made my step to the single seaters.
And how did you find that transition to a car? Because obviously it's quite different to a car. I guess it was quite a tough challenge to transition.
Yeah, actually it was a bit difficult because it's a different driving style. You really need to know the technique and learn it, and you really need so many kilometers to be there. So it was quite difficult because I couldn't train a lot, also because of the budget. And then yeah, I mean it was tough.
My next question was about the budget and the cost of racing, because there's quite a significant step up between karting and the car racing. How did you and your family deal with that? Because I guess that's one of the biggest challenges for a lot of people.
Well, when I was doing karting, we were good on like money wise, and we were able to do a lot of racing. But then when the single seater jump came, it was more difficult. We needed to find the sponsors, but it was like really difficult to get sponsors. That's why I had to stop racing when I was in the Renault Sport Academy in 2017. I was being more like helped by Renault. But then when it finished, I had to stop racing because I didn't have any money to keep going on. So I came back to karting. So I mean, it's quite difficult, the world of motorsport, because you need a lot of money, and it's just crazy.
And at that sort of time, how were you dealing with balancing racing and school? I assume that's quite a hard thing to deal with.
Yeah, for me, when I was doing school, it was not that difficult, because I think school is not that tough, obviously. So I could be all right with that. But then when I started university now, it got more difficult. But I think you can do both things and do both right.
And on reflection, how do you sort of see that first season in F4?
It was not really like a good year, obviously, because it was my first year, like complete first year, and I was missing a lot of experience. But I mean, it was not that bad. I did some fifth positions in some races, and some stuff like I was learning, but it was not like a great year. Obviously, I came from karting, like from winning to being 8th in the F4, so it was not obviously the same. But I knew it was difficult because of the change from karting to single seaters. It was quite different.
So what was your, obviously maybe looking back on it with different memories, but when you got the call to join the Renault Sport Academy around 2017, was that something really amazing as a young driver?
Well, obviously, yeah. I was really happy because of the opportunity that they were giving me. Like being a Renault Sport Academy driver, it was like, okay, this is really good. And yeah, I mean, it was a really nice experience being there. Something different, like you don't know like what's that about. So when you are there and you see everything, then you know like what is it. So yeah, for me it was a good experience. And yeah.
I mean, sadly, Renault got rid of quite a few of their young drivers at the end of the season. Was it just a situation of not the right time for you, and maybe the best place was to go your separate ways and do something else in 2018?
Obviously, they wanted me, like they wanted many of us to do some target to be in the top 3 of the championship. So for me, it was quite difficult in the first year. So yeah, I mean, we finished with them. So that's when I had to go back to karting on 2018 because I didn't have any sponsor or anything, anyone who could help me to keep racing. So yeah, I just had to go back to karting.
But it's really nice to see, as a fan of just motorsport, that you didn't give up at that point. You went back. You did, really good stuff in karting once again. Did you ever go through a moment where you thought maybe this is it? Maybe I won't be racing cars again, or your aim's always just to get back in a car as soon as possible? Well,
I went through that time because when I stopped racing, even on the season, like 2017, I was already thinking like myself. In the end of the year, like I was gonna have like to stop racing. I had to stop racing because we didn't have any budget, we didn't have any money. So I was actually gonna stop racing, like doing no karting, not even karting. Okay. But in the end, we found someone who would take like my cars and help me also with the championships, like paying less and things like this. So in the end, I did the Spanish championship. But yeah, I had in mind like stop racing. Also my family, we talked about it. Like, okay, we're gonna have to stop racing because we don't have the money. But in the end, something came, but it was like really small thing. Yeah.
I think we're all glad that you stayed at it though, because by the end of 2018, the W Series was starting to be announced. Obviously, you were one of the favourites to get the seat. Do you remember the reaction when you were announced on that first shortlist?
Well, I was really happy because, I mean, I was going to stop racing. So at that point, I was like, shit, they are giving me an opportunity now to race in single seaters. And this is great.
And did you prepare anything or specially, because there are 55 drivers that needed to be narrowed down to 18, did you train extra hard, or was it just about being what you were doing normally?
I tried to do something, I went driving some car, like a road car, but really nothing else. I just tried to do this, and then I remember when I went to Melk, to the first stage, it was snowing, raining, and I was like, okay, I never drove in the snow, so I was a bit like nervous. But yeah, it was quite good for me, and it was fun.
How did you find that whole process? Was there anything that sort of stands out to you as either a great or a bad moment?
Well, I think the process was quite good. I like in the first stage in milk, it was something different. As I said, driving in the snow, doing drift, was not like really driving. But then the second stage was the testing in Almeria with the Formula 3 car. So that was more like, okay, this is our thing. And yeah, I found them like quite good, both of them.
And it all worked out well. You were, one of the first selected, and obviously went on to great things, which we'll speak about in a little bit. But between getting selected and the first race, did you do anything on like simulators? Because obviously you'd not been in a single-seater car for quite a while. Did you want to spend some time on there, or did you work on fitness?
Well, I obviously worked a lot on the fitness side. But I also did some. Well, I actually didn't do sim. No, I didn't do sim before the start of the season. I think I went. I think I did some testing, like 2 days probably, because right now I don't even remember what I did. I was like, it just went off. But I think I went testing like twice or something like this. But really like nothing. And then I just went to the first race, and yeah.
And as we say, going to the first race at Hockenheim, did you set yourself any expectation? Because at the time, nobody knew who was going to be quickest. But I suppose you'd already had experience in single-seaters. Did you want to get top 10, top 5, podium?
So in the first race, I actually wanted to get a podium. Because I saw how was the testing in Almeria. I saw I already knew a bit how was everything. So I knew I could maybe do like a podium, and it was like my target. But then I remember the weekend started not so good. But then it just came well. So yeah, that was my target to be in the top 3, and I was happy because I could do it.
I was going to say, it was a really impressive race. Going from 5th on the grid to 3rd, you were, I think, only 1.5 seconds behind the leader as well. So I think a lot of us were a little bit surprised, obviously, because we didn't know what was going to happen, but the fact you were one of the most aggressive drivers in that first race, was that something that you sort of took from that you could go out there and get a victory, which you later did?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was not many people were like really knowing me, so I guess that was like, okay, so who is this and stuff like that. But yeah,
it was a good start to the year. 3rd in Hockenheim, 4th at Zolder, 6th at Misano, and then obviously Norrisring, short track. Everything's really tight together. How did you approach that weekend, or was it the same as the other 3?
Norrisring. So actually, I said this. I'm gonna say the same. It didn't start so well. I remember I was missing a lot in the second sector, which was the quick part of the track, and also the braking stuff were quite good for me. So I knew I had to improve in the fast sector. So I remember I went to my bedroom on the night before the qualifying, and then I just started to look at the map with my with my stuff, like what I had been reading, and I just tried to, okay, I need to do this, and then in the qualifying next day, I just improved that sector, and I was like first. I didn't even believe it, because the day before I was not that far. I was like 3/10 off. But I was like really, wow, like first pole. I was really happy, and yeah.
The thing is with Norrisring, it's such a small track, so the gaps are really close. Because I was at the race weekend myself, and it was really interesting to see just the whole field was covered by such a small margin. Obviously, it was great to see you on pole. I think the fact that the first few races, you know, it looked like it was going to be Jamie Chadwick winning every single race, but then things started to change. Was it, you know, what went through your head when you did get pole? Or, as you say, could you just not believe it?
Yeah, I mean, I was like really... Okay, I was like a bit surprised because I didn't expect to do pole. I expected to do good if I improved that second sector. But then I just started to have a lot of rhythm, like a lot of pace. And yeah, I was quite surprised, but I was like, okay, I can do this.
And then the race, the problem is at Norrisring is there's quite a long run down to the first corner. Were you worried that Chadwick or Volvend, who are behind you, were going to slipstream past you into turn one?
Not really. I wasn't thinking about that, but I was a bit nervous, obviously, before the race and on the grid. But I tried to focus really hard and just like do the work, like, okay, I know what I have to do on the first lap. So I was lucky I had a good start. And yeah, I just really had a really good pace and I just went. So it was really good.
I was going to say, I've written down that you had a perfect start, and does your mindset change when you're the person in front? Because obviously at Hockenheim you were the driver behind attacking. Were you looking behind in your mirrors or just focusing fully on keeping the lead?
Obviously in the first lap, second lap, I looked at the mirrors to see where the others were. But I saw I've got a bit of a gap. So I just tried to go for it, like to go faster and faster and try to make a bigger gap. So yeah, I just like I told you, I just got a really big gap, and yeah.
I don't know whether it's a common story within like racing drivers when you're going for a big moment like a race win or a title. Did anything go through your mind, like tricking you that something was wrong with the car? I've heard people listening out for noises. Was that happening to you?
I was... So I have like a thing there in Norrisring. I remember I was... I think I was like 4 seconds off. Like, okay, they were 4 seconds off me. So I was coming into the first corner, and then I turned the steering wheel, and then I put it straight. And then when I put it straight, I pressed the pit limiter button without really, like, it was not like, I think it was the hand I gave with the pit limiter, and then I was like, fuck, what's going on? And I was like, in that moment, I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, okay, I'm gonna lose the race. And then I just realized it was the pit limiter. And yeah, it was like a moment like, oops.
I mean, that's surprising. I didn't know that from looking at the footage, but obviously, thankfully, you found the issue quite quickly. I guess that was obviously a really great part of the year. Then going into the last couple of races, they didn't quite go to plan. I mean, you still got points in both races. Was it just the fact that the field was so tight towards the end of the year and not maybe getting the right setup? Was that the reason for the results maybe not being quite there?
I think it was more me, like the tracks. It's like I need more confidence. I was needing more confidence with the car in the fast tracks, like Assen and the Brands Hatch, but more Brands Hatch. Brands Hatch was really hard because it's like really fast corners. You need to have the confidence. So I was missing a lot in Brands Hatch. And in Assen, for example, my best lap on the qualifying was taken off because there was red flag in that lap. So that was a bit And then that made me start ninth in the race. So I couldn't even overtake any of the cars because I was not like really fast, and I just stayed 9.
But still, I guess looking back at the season, 4th place in the championship, you're actually only one of, I think, 3 drivers to score points in every single race as well. I think your goal was top 5 in the championship when you were asked at the start of the year. So I guess, do you look back on 2019 with good memories still?
Yeah, obviously. My target, as you said, was to be top 5. So for me, being top 4, top 4, top 5, was really good for my first year. And I was really happy to be in the podium. I was really happy also to be on pole, winning a race. I mean, it was a really good year for me.
I mean, unfortunately, we've had quite a long off season due to what's been going on. I've seen that on social media and so on, you've been now getting into the simulator. Is that changing your pre-season sort of training in a way to get more laps in, even if it's virtually?
Now, obviously, we are in the quarantine. Here I'm not sure what about you in England, but here in Spain is really bad because we are in our 33 day of quarantine.
Yeah, we're not quite as bad, so you've had it longer than us.
Yeah, so I haven't been going out of my house since 33 days ago.
Wow.
And I've got the SIM. I think I've got the SIM like 1 week ago. So it's really good for training because in the end we need to keep in the feeling. And I will maybe try to do some races as well, like online races. And yeah, let's see.
If we look to 2020, and obviously we all hope we get racing quite soon, do you look at any of the grid and look at them as your main competitors for the championship? Because now, this year, you will be one of the favourites.
This year, obviously, there's going to be more level over all of the drivers. Like, we already have been racing 1 year. We know some of the tracks. So it's going to be more competitive, for sure. Obviously, Jamie is going to be really strong. She's been doing also the FIA from Asia, and she was quite good. Also, Alice was racing something. And many other drivers are doing well. So it will be a good year and very competitive.
And you're also...
If we can race.
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, we all hope that we can do. You're actually joined by 2 Spanish drivers on the grid this year. I guess it would be nice to be able to speak to, people on the grid in your first language.
Yeah, I think it's good always. So yeah, I will have some to speak Spanish with. But I was also speaking a bit of Spanish, Italian with Vicky. Okay. So for me, it's fine.
And if we look beyond 2020, assuming it will be another great year, is the aim to go to Formula 3 of some sort in 2021?
Obviously, the target is to be in the FIA F3 on 2021. But with all this situation with the COVID-19, I mean, it's being not that easy because I don't even think we are gonna be able to start the season on that, like on the day that we were supposed to do. So I guess this year is gonna be a bit of a disaster. So yeah, I would love to be in the FIA F3 on 2021, but I'm not sure if that would be possible. But obviously, I would like to be there on 2022.
I mean, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed we can go racing. I guess it's quite a weird year for motorsport and everyone. So yeah, fingers crossed. And there's the statistic that a female driver hasn't raced in Formula 1, I think in nearly 40 or over 40 years now. How long do you think it will be whether maybe you or someone else will be on the grid? Or does that not matter to you? Is it just about focusing on your career?
Well, obviously, focusing on my career, it's the most important. But I can tell you, I think the day that there will be someone will be when there is actually one racing girl, like a racing driver girl, who is really ready to be in the like F1. Because right now I don't think there's anyone really able to do that, any girl. But I think maybe in 3, 4, 5 years, maybe we could have someone there.
And it might be weird to say, but you're now inspiring a new generation of female drivers, possibly a role model for thousands of people right now. How does that feel? I mean, I guess you've probably seen it this year, loads of fans coming up to you and speaking.
Well, I mean, it's great, first of all, to have fans and people who is supporting you. And if I had to say something to any little girl or anyone who wants to join the motorsport world, is to sacrifice, work every day, and if you like it, just do it.
Perfect. And would you give any advice to the younger version of yourself that wanted to go racing? Would you change anything, or do you think everything has led to you being the driver you are today?
Well, I would say, like what I said, just sacrifice, do the work every day, work hard every day, training, physically, everything to be on top.
Perfect. That was my last question. Thanks for your time. Good luck for 2020. Hopefully we won't be too long before we go racing. But yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
So once again, thank you to Marta for her time. Some really interesting stories in there, and of course we're wishing her the best of luck for 2020 and beyond once we get racing once again. I especially found the story about hitting the pit limiter at Norrisring quite interesting, as it's something at the side of the track I did not notice whatsoever. But nonetheless, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week for another episode of the My Story podcast.